Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett. She's known as the Queen of Cabaret, but who is she? We'll find out next on Our Time. And welcome to Our Time. She is known as Queen of Cabaret here in South Australia, and her name is Catherine Campbell. So lovely to have you finally on this program, Catherine.
Oh, it's really lovely to be here, Malcolm. Thank you.
Well, I can't believe your career because it started here in South Australia, didn't it? But it's taken you literally to New York.
Well, yes, New York.
That's moving quickly through your life, isn't it?
Yeah, it didn't go there straight away. New York and all around Australia and London and Norway.
So you're working on a steamboat, chugging around the world.
No, they were.
No, let's go back to the beginning because you, I've seen you perform and you're just extraordinary. And I keep saying to people, why aren't we seeing more of Catherine?
Oh.
So how did you start your life and career as a little girl tap dancing around the kitchen table?
Well, I wish I could tap dance. I saw your excellent display before. My sister was the dancer. She was the one who could. It took me a year to learn a time step, and I don't inflict it on anyone. And in my days of doing music theatre, I did do an audition for Gary Young, wonderful Gary Young, who I danced on him twice.
On him?
He suggested that I go and do a little bit more dance before I, on him. I know. We were doing this tight choreography and I kind of trod on, he's not very tall, and I trod on him, and not just on his foot, like kind of all down his leg. And
this was a serious piece, wasn't it?
I think he was serious about what he wanted the dancing, but I was a good actor, so I always looked like I could dance, and I'd always get the dance call back. And
is that what you felt you would pursue as an acting career?
Well, no, I started as a singer. I was terribly keen to be a classical singer. I don't know why. Actually, no. Well, my first dream was to be the special guest on Young Talent Time. That was my.
Should have come to the Johnny Young Talent School.
Well, I came and did dance lessons there after I danced on the choreographer. And I used to plan it all out and dream, and practice. I was going to sing I Saw Mummy Kissing Santa Claus, and but that didn't happen. But I did get to go on Red Faces.
You should change that to I Saw Daddy Kissing Santa. It would be much more interesting. That's cabaret, isn't it?
It would be very cabaret, and if my father was still alive, I'm sure he'd be leaping from his seat, ready to put my lights out. I'm fine. It doesn't worry me. Love who you love, but I don't think he would have been fine, which would have been quite amusing. I probably would have done it.
But now that's an interesting comment, because that must have been difficult then, with parents wanting you to go into show business.
Well, I don't know. My mother was a teacher, and I think my mum was very good. She always used to just say, do something that makes you happy. And we were.
Isn't that the secret of life?
Yes, she was a child of a refugee.
Right.
Well, they both came. She was 8, fled from Russia after the war.
From Russia, right.
And so I'm very lucky to be here, not in the sort of rural Russia growing up.
But it's extraordinary, isn't it, how life can change so dramatically for simple things that have happened in our past.
Yes, yeah.
So when did you first start performing?
When I was 5 years old, in the sub-juniors of the Halifax Calisthenics Club, starring role in the march.
But not as an actor?
No.
As a Cali girl?
Yes. And then any chance I could get, this Festival of Music, the primary school's choir, I felt like I was the only one on the stage. And I'll never forget then being in the opera company for all those years. I'm still there. The first time I did a paid gig at the Festival Theatre, and in the middle of the scene, coming out onto the stage and getting a little moment while I was singing out, and then I got quite teary because there was 10-year-old me singing my guts out, and there I was being paid to be there, and
it's an extraordinary feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that moment that you must embrace and remember forever.
Yes. Oh, and so privileged to get to do some of the things I've done here in Adelaide. We were talking before about, it's a trade-off when you base yourself in Adelaide. You perhaps don't get to hit the heights that you might.
You can always go to Mount Lofty.
Well, you can, especially it's not very tall, but but some wonderful experiences with the Cabaret Festival, all those people I got to work with.
Well, that really launched your career.
Yeah.
And look, we've got this poster here, and I know I'm jumping a bit, but we've
Right,
got this
sure.
little poster of My Blue Angel.
Oh, yes.
You weren't being Marlene Dietrich as
No.
such.
And that photo isn't actually from the show. That photo, because there was no photo yet, that's from Berlin Cabaret, the show that we did in Hindley Street for 3 years every Friday night. Sometimes being paid $15, sometimes $150, like depending on who came through the door.
Right.
Yeah, and that was wonderful. Stephen Sheehan and Hugh Parham. And
Is that where Hans got his start
yes.
as well?
And he will tell the story of, I was in the market and he was playing accordion and I heard him playing 80s music and just didn't think anything of it, and then actually did a double take, like walked off singing along, and then went, that very young man is playing 80s music on the accordion, that's extraordinary, and literally walked back and went and listened from around the corner of Providore, you know, and then went up to him afterwards and said, would you like to come and be a guest in our show?
Well, I saw you there then, and I saw him when he was that age playing, and the people I was with said, there's something about him. They were right.
He's just extraordinary. He's just gone on and on.
We thought you were fabulous, but there was something about him.
Well, and I loved it. Berlin Cabaret is a training ground, and this is the thing. The more you get to perform, the more you get to learn what it is that you do. I mean, you have to do a lot of work before that. You don't just get out and experiment in front of a crowd, but you do get to play with the crowd and have the most fun and the most terror.
Well, so that brings the most logical question. What is cabaret? And before you answer, because I'm as old as I am, I used to work with a band between the age of, a four-piece band between the age of 18 and 21, 20, something like that. And we worked at a hotel. We were the band in the hotel. And every Saturday night was a cabaret night because people would come in, have a meal, and then push each other around the floor until they fell over because they drank too much. And we were the band playing. And you had the experience when you were working in America of saying that you were at...
Well, I got to study cabaret at Yale, and I love telling people I studied at Yale, and they all think I did something wonderful like law, but I did cabaret. But when you tell people in America this, you get varying reactions, because in a few states in America, to have a cabaret license means your venue has topless dancing. So that they looked at me and said, well, you don't look like a cabaret performer. I say, well, I am, and I'm very good at it. And then they'd sort of move away or look down their nose.
Oh, I love that.
And I that's my favourite story about it. So that's what cabaret means. But I think...
No, but what is it? Because it means several things. I think the official definition is that it's a show with food and with political or musical commentary.
Well, yeah, and I think very importantly, and darling Frank Ford used to say this, you've got to be at small tables. You can't be at giant banquet tables, and you can't be in rows, because then you're looking at a person, and also you sit down with your drink, you bring a drink in, and you're waiting for the show. Oh, hello, and you have a chat. And at the Cabaret Festival, especially in those first 6 years,
there's a social moment to start
there were people
with.
who became endearingly good friends, lifelong friends, who met at a cabaret table, you know. And you also, if you're with a group and there's people you don't, hello, and you talk, you get chatting about whatever, and then you watch the show together because you can see each other as well. You're not sitting in flat rows.
So would a good definition be a shared human experience?
Well, I think
something?
I think there's no fourth wall in cabaret. Sometimes there's less interaction, but the cabaret the performance is always consciously two-way. So if someone says something, or if there's a question asked, it's not like in a play where you wouldn't say something back. A good cabaret performer wants you to talk to them, because then it's a conversation.
You're not talking at them, you're talking with them.
And the thing that I learned at Berlin Cabaret every night, you know, week after week, is that we were doing the same show even when we said it was a new show. It was pretty much mostly the old show because
Oh, I can't
we-
believe show business wouldn't tell the
no,
truth.
no, and we would
What do you
chuck in a few
mean?
new things and a few new routines, and then it was because also then we'd say, right, I'm not singing "Falling in Love Again." I'm not singing that anymore. And you'd get up, you'd do the whole show, and someone would come up while you were waiting, and put $50 in your hand and say, "Could you sing 'Falling in Love Again'?"
Oh God, you did better than I did.
I brought my grandmother, or can you sing
Oh.
"Falling in Love Again"? It's our wedding anniversary, and you just think, I have to sing that song until I die. But I mean, who cares? It's the most beautiful song. But you would do the same show, and that it would be different every time.
Oh, I agree.
The gift of a really great audience member, or
It's a bit like playing tennis, don't you think? It's like you hit it out to them, and with any luck, they give it back to you.
And the skill I learnt from everybody. I was artistically influenced by everyone. You learn the things that are going to keep it going or get the laugh, but you wait for those moments when, but it's the songs that really do it. Being able to craft or tell that story within a song, that's the gift. And the audience is living it with you.
I understand that. And, we'll be back in a moment with Catherine Campbell, and perhaps we might even see the American version of what cabaret means. See you in a tick. We're back with the Queen of Cabaret, Catherine Campbell, but not the American style. The Australian style, because it's become sort of I know it's a worldwide movement, cabaret, but because of the Cabaret Festival it's the largest in the world, isn't it?
The largest
it's right
cabaret
here in
festival,
Adelaide.
yeah.
So you sort of super sprung to fame at the beginning almost of the Cabaret Festival. And that's sort of launched all the overseas work, didn't it?
Yes. Well, I did the South Australian premiere of Into the Woods at the Space Theatre, and there's a prize bonus for working out what role I had. And so I always...
The giant.
Yeah, the giant. No, I was the witch. And we got to see this fantastic... I make a career of playing witches. This fantastic cabaret trio called Fascinating Aida. And they were in the Playhouse and they invited us to come and see their show. And I thought, I want to do that, whatever they're doing, because, just on music theatre where you are typecast and...
And truthfully, somebody's played that before. So in a way, you haven't got a great deal of space to sort of
And either
much.
you're in the Cameron Mackintoshes and the sort of Andrew Lloyd Webbers, where if the original character did 3 pulses on that note, you do 3 pulses on that note, and it's a bit like that. Or you're lucky enough to do something new, and they don't tend to have very long runs. Or you're doing the 438th production of Mikado, which is fantastic, and it's such a wonderful show. But
the audience sort of expects to see it the way that it's been done before, I suppose.
Yeah, and you do have an honour to the craft of that
to the
story.
Creators.
Somebody spent a lot of time writing it and moulding it, and you don't want to go in and play with it. But
so what was different about the show you saw and what you'd been doing?
Well, I mean, they wrote their own material. It was very funny. They did close harmonies. They looked stunning. They wore fabulous frocks. And I thought, I want to do that. And got Johanna Allen and got around to my house and said, right, you're as ambitious as I am. Let's do a show. And we spent the whole day coming up with a name. And we came up with Gentlemen Prefer Curves, because we were both curvy girls who didn't want to have to diet, but were always on a diet. And all the cabaret singers we knew were, these incredible goddess svelte women who wore satins and sequins and looked amazing. And we just said, no, let's just go with that. And then we did the Cabaret Festival.
But that was such a successful show. So successful.
It was. We were the first. They used to use the stage as a venue. They'd put a stage on the stage and set up all the chairs and tables and bars. We were the first act to use that. That was when they had the curtain out. So any extra seats they sold were in the stalls. So they had the stage at the back. And we sold out 2 nights. Well, 2 performances on the same night of that first night of that. And it was extraordinary. And that was also when I learnt in cabaret, there's a moment sometimes where when you're being really honest, other people connect with that, or different people's circumstances might bring them to your story in a different way, and I had a line that I knew would get a laugh, but I didn't know we couldn't hear the audience very well. And I said my line and I didn't hear anything. And I thought, oh, that's it, I'm dying up here. And I was talking about, my friends say I fall in love too easily. And I waited for the reaction. There was none. And I couldn't really see everybody either. And I was just standing there, completely at a loss, and then said, maybe that's just me, and kind of like, Carol, start playing, and saying
Carol
falling
was the
in love,
pianist
yes,
at the time.
saying falling in love again,
Yes.
And afterwards, 10 different people from different people I knew said that was when we were having coffee. Wasn't you were talking about? Or people saying, I know how it feels like it when you saw it, and I thought I was dying, and people didn't think I was dying. They thought I was very brave to, but I really was just dying
because they were feeling.
Well, no, they said, I feel like that, or you make me cry.
That's what I mean. You've just said something that we can identify with.
And I thought, gosh, Cabaret does that, doesn't it? And it did that all those nights in Berlin. Cabaret in the Weimar room with the toilets that flooded and the people who'd wander in off the street because they thought they were coming to see a strip show. And it was stacked.
Wrong country.
Oh, it was wonderfully anarchic. And I was singing Illusions, the wonderful Berlin Cabaret song, and the whole thing, the tight spot, the cigarette smoke and everything. And Hugh Parham came on stage in nothing but his pants and suspenders, and stood there with his white face and started pinning pegs to his bare chest while I was singing my torch song, and I was going to knife him in the head, like, how dare you upstage my song? And about 3 lines later, I thought, oh, this is brilliant. Like, this is exactly what we should be doing. And
do you know, I've watched just recently Ray Crow, who's famous now all over the world, loves a lot of the old vaudeville stuff, and he just sent me a clip of a woman on point doing a routine with bent knees on point, doing it all sort of like that, and a guy comes and joins her, and they do a dance routine that's all with bent knees. Well, he's not on point. But the thing is, those sort of novelty acts, they used to be called in vaudeville, those sort of novelty acts were incredibly popular back in the 20s, early 30s, and they've almost disappeared until the fringes came along all over the world, and people have rediscovered these unusual things
and you can
that
make
set
a living,
people off, and you can make a living by doing daft
going
stuff.
around and doing your trick, doing your party trick.
Yes.
Or your gimmick.
But the only sad thing is a lot of them only do the one thing. They don't grow and develop or change.
But it's when you've got an artist who's got a trick and can nail a song, like just sing the back wall off a song, or when you've got those things, people just
it's connection.
They come back for it, and that's the other thing I think in cabaret, because of that conversation, you connect with people, and you be humans in a room together. And I say to the students, you've got to drive the bus, you've got to have stuff ready, and you've got to know your stuff, do your work on the stage,
And you need a head full of experience to know which way to go with the audience, don't you?
But the wonderful thing about cabaret is, while people they'll talk to you and they'll try and get the laughs in the room over, they don't heckle like they do in stand-up comedy. There doesn't seem to be the same.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And I think stand-up comedy is a little bit of, you're funny, right? I'll challenge you. I want you to be the funniest person in the room.
I've never thought of it in those terms.
I've never been, and I mean, look, touch wood. Next cabaret show I do, someone will heckle, and but people will call things out or try and. But it usually is, in my experience, it's never unmanageable. And I think
no. Well, I came from a theatre restaurant background, so we had a bit of both.
Yes, right.
And so you had a head full of lines that you could use for, whatever sort of circumstance you felt was necessary, and they're still sitting back there sometime to recall. But you just said teach, and that's what you're doing now.
I do more teaching than performing, which is
sad.
Well,
Good for the students,
Yeah,
sad for the rest of us.
But I'll take any chance to get on a stage, you know. But I love teaching because students will be brave when sometimes you wonder how you'd be brave, you know. Now they'll find something that you're blown away. And the cabaret course that I teach here at UniSA,
Yep.
We of course were online for the whole course. It starts in April, ends in June.
Did you find that difficult?
Oh, it's 40 students teaching cabaret, yes. But luckily
5 minutes
enough,
with each, was it?
oh, it was. But they were wonderful, and they came with, and they stuck with it, and they did their work, and then we had some online master classes, and.
What about it? Do you think cabaret, because none of us know how long this is going to last, the COVID thing, do you think that's a new area to perhaps move into, or do you think the connection with the audience is...
Yeah, with these students, we had the last 2 weeks, we were lucky enough to be back in the theatre here, but it's a theatre, it's not a cabaret room. Normally the soloists would have done the piano bar at the Cabaret Festival, featured show there, and then the group used to do a showcase at La Boheme, but they would do in a room, a cabaret room, not a theatre. And I wondered how they go, how they create the atmosphere. Well, they did. And that made me think, well, maybe things like cabaret, where you don't have to be all on top of each other.
Yeah, we've got to find the new areas that we can work in. But you've just mentioned La Boheme, which of course was run by your husband.
It was.
Which is sadly no longer. But we need another room here in South Australia like that, preferably with Paul running it. Because whilst it was a combination of two little shops next door to each other, basically, with the stage in one and a bar in the other, and little seats that felt very cabaret-ish because they were big wood chairs.
And they were Czechoslovakian. They were the real deal.
Good gracious. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, these
But really, we're all breathing the same air in a room like this. We're all experiencing the same warmth and the same feeling, and we all hear the things at the same time because of the smallness. Is that really what cabaret is, or can it transpose into a bigger venue?
Well,
but don't answer that.
Yeah, I think
Don't answer that, because we've got to take a break and we'll be back in a tick. Before the break, we posed the question, will cabaret work to a bigger room rather than a small space? And the expert answer to that is...
Well, the Cabaret Festival used to use the festival theatre, and I'm sure they will again if they can.
And back to front,
and
on the stage back to front.
And then on the stage,
as a big
which was
show.
about 350 people at tables, but then they would use someone on the stage like Michael Feinstein or,
a big draw, somebody who...
Christian Chenoweth, another one. Look, some of them, of course, they're great entertainers. Bernadette Peters, they can use the room, they can connect with everybody, but it is different in a big sort of 1,800 seat theatre.
I think it's to smell the same air. That's, to me, that's...
I think a big part of it is when someone's doing something and you laugh at it, you catch the eye of someone else laughing and you share that. Or you're watching Caroline Nin, watching her worker room, I stole everything she does and adapt. Obviously, you adapt it. It's really...
Well, everybody does steal a bit,
but
let's be honest.
I watched her, this tall, ravishing French woman. I mean, my goodness, just every heart in the room's a heart, and she comes down off the stage and here we go. She's going to go and, and she's, walking through speaking this French, just slinking her way through, and she's so tall, you can see her, no problem. And she's walking around and she noticed one man is sort of excited and terrified, and she said, "Oh, don't worry, it's probably not you." And walks past him and then circles around and comes back and sits with him. And of course, everyone erupts. And I just thought, look at that. She knew what was going on. She knew the story, but she played with all of us. And, I talked with Hugh Parham, who teaches for me in the course. You always make yourself the joke. You never make someone else the joke.
Absolutely
even
right.
when, as Hans does so well, darling Matt, you know, oh, what are you wearing? You know, where's it come from? Suzanne's, oh, this doesn't go with this, you know, and like, or it was a dark where you got dressed, or they, you know, and people would kind of cry more, berate me more, because at the end of the day, he's always the joke. And I think if you can get that going in a room, it doesn't matter if the room is slightly bigger and everyone's a little further apart, because that's the story you help tell, and we need those stories.
And hopefully that's our conversation has made you feel at home exactly like that, that you're just sharing a conversation with us. It's been absolutely lovely having you, Catherine.
Oh, it's been beautiful being
we had a little conversation in the break, and in a few weeks' time, what are we going to do? Say it quick.
We're going to do UniSA Covid Cabaret, which some of the students from here who did a fantastic show at the end of June.
So they're new and emerging performers in the cabaret scene. Happens right here at the McGill campus of UniSA. And it's been great having your company this time on OurTime. Until next time, keep yourselves nice till then. Bye.